Patrick Star might seem like just a lazy starfish with no worries, but there's more to him than meets the eye. Beneath his goofy grin and endless naps, Patrick's shaped by his simple dreams and the unspoken need to fit in. He might not always get things right, but his loyalty to his friends and his carefree attitude tell a different story. To really understand Patrick, we have to look at what drives him, and how his laid-back life hides a deeper, surprisingly honest side. So, grab a jellyfish net and let's take a look at the world of Patrick Star. Patrick's life is about as laid back as it gets. He lives under a rock, literally. He has no job, school, or any responsibilities. His entire routine could be summed up in a few words: sleep, eat, and follow SpongeBob around. That's it. And to him, that's enough. He doesn't wake up with a plan. He doesn't have goals. His version of a busy day is deciding between eating a donut or sitting down with a jellyfish net. He's not trying to become anything. He already is. And that's what makes Patrick kind of interesting, because he doesn't change. His whole world is built around the idea that you don't have to move forward to be fine. In The Paper, Patrick doesn't take center stage, but the moment he appears, he says a lot without doing much. SpongeBob gets a gum wrapper and turns it into a whole world of fun. He flies with it, plays music with it, even makes origami birds with his mouth. Squidward, of course, hates that. But Patrick, he watches. He laughs, and when he finally gets the paper, he just uses it to spit out his gum. That's it. To Patrick, the paper has no magic. It's not special. He doesn't see the imagination, the joy, or any of that deeper stuff. That's not how his brain works. If something's fun in the moment, great. If not, toss it. He doesn't hold on to things or overthink them. He just is there, floating through whatever's happening, and that's his comfort zone. He doesn't need to create anything. He's happy reacting, playing along when it feels right, or just zoning out when it doesn't. Then you've got Patrick the Game, which shows what happens when Patrick actually tries to do something creative. He makes his own board game, and surprise, it's completely insane. The rules change constantly, the board makes no sense. Squidward ends up getting arrested, but Patrick's not doing any of this out of cruelty. In his mind, this is just how games work. He's mixing stuff together and making it up as he goes, because that's how his brain handles complexity, by turning it into chaos that feels fun. He's not trying to win. He's not even trying to make a real game. He just wants to feel in control for once. For a guy who usually floats behind others, this is him calling the shots. But even when he's in charge, he doesn't lead with thought or care. He leads with impulse. Whatever seems fun in that second, that's the rule now. That's the next move. It's why the game ends with him yelling, "Game over!" and Squidward getting taken away by the cops. Because to Patrick, that feels like a good ending. And if it feels right, that's all that matters. Now take Help Not Wanted, which gives us a rare look at Patrick's relationship with his dad. Cecil drops into his life, literally from the sky, and Patrick instantly treats him like a hero. They hang out, play board games, cook chili. Patrick's whole world gets brighter just because someone he loves is around. He doesn't care that his dad annoys the camp counselors or kind of takes over everything. All Patrick sees is someone fun who makes him feel good. But again, he doesn't think long term. When Cecil leaves at the end, Patrick doesn't fight it. He doesn't cry or get mad. He just waves goodbye and goes back to whatever's next. That's how he handles everything. People come, people go, and he keeps floating along. That's the core of Patrick's world. He doesn't search for meaning because he assumes life already makes sense. He doesn't try to grow because he doesn't think he needs to. He's not dumb. He's just tuned into a totally different frequency than everyone else. He sees the world through the lens of how it feels right now, not how it might feel later. But that kind of mindset can cause problems. When Patrick does get power, like in the fishbowl, it goes badly. He becomes selfish without realizing it. He treats SpongeBob like a servant because he doesn't see the line he's crossing. When no one's around to guide him, he doesn't know where the boundaries are. He doesn't think about how other people feel because deep down, he doesn't realize their feelings might be different from his. And when things go wrong, he moves on without really understanding why. Still, there's something kind of pure about him. He doesn't carry bitterness. He's not jealous, even when he probably should be. He doesn't compare himself to others. He's just happy with what he has, even if that's just a rock and a sandwich. He trusts easily. He forgives quickly. He sees life as something you float through, not something you have to win. And maybe that's why it hits harder when something does affect him. When a friend is in trouble or a real choice shows up, he snaps into focus, even if it's just for a second. There's something underneath all that laziness and confusion. Raw, unfiltered feeling that surprises even him when it comes out. So yeah, right now, Patrick's just living in his little bubble, with no idea what's waiting beyond the next nap. But one day, something will crack through. And when it does, it'll mean more, because he never saw it coming. Patrick's life works because he never changes, but that illusion starts to crack the moment something from the outside gives him a reason to move. Patrick isn't the type to chase anything. He doesn't make plans or ask big questions. He lives under a rock, takes naps whenever he wants, and lets the world happen around him. He's not stuck. He just doesn't see a reason to move. His life runs on jellyfish things and snack breaks. It's quiet, lazy, and fully closed off to change. But even someone like Patrick can be pulled into something strange. In Valentine's Day, that something strange is not getting what he was promised. SpongeBob shows up with big talk about the best gift ever, gets Patrick excited, then takes him to a carnival where nothing happens. Patrick's waiting for this amazing surprise, but all he gets is a handshake. Patrick has never doubted SpongeBob before. When his friend promises something special, it always works out. But now there's this empty space where his gift should be, and Patrick doesn't get it. He spent all day thinking something great was coming, and it just disappeared. Things get worse when Patrick sees everyone else getting real presents from SpongeBob. Chocolates, roses, even a bike for some random fish. Meanwhile, Patrick, his best friend, got a handshake. That's when something changes. Patrick stops going along with things and starts getting mad. By the time Patrick is throwing people around and chasing SpongeBob across the carnival, he's acting completely different. He's not just sitting around anymore. He's going after something, even if it's just wanting to feel important. He's not waiting for good things to happen. He's making something happen himself. The chocolate balloon was real the whole time, just late. But Patrick's anger about not getting it made him do things he'd never done before. Sometimes you don't need to find adventure. Sometimes it finds you when someone breaks a promise and you decide you're not okay with that. It's the same kind of moment in The Googly Artiste. Patrick's not trying to be an artist. He's not even trying to be creative. He just sticks googly eyes all over a rock because SpongeBob told him it looked fun. And somehow, an art critic sees it and calls it genius. That one compliment changes everything. Patrick goes from being useless and confused to being the center of attention. He makes more art. He starts selling it. He gives advice. He becomes a name. Just because someone told him he had value. He doesn't understand the attention, but he accepts it. He starts showing up, putting in effort, leading conversations. And again, that's the important part. He moves. He steps out of his stillness and acts like someone who believes he matters. Until the moment passes. Eventually, the excitement fades. The trend dies down. The art world moves on. And Patrick, he shrugs and lets it go, because he doesn't know how to hold on to it. The thing that gave him a path disappears, and without it, he doesn't know where to go. Both episodes follow the same pattern. Something strange interrupts Patrick's quiet life. Something small, silly even, but it gives him direction. For a while, he follows it, believes in it, builds around it, and then it's gone, and Patrick goes back to sleep. That could make it seem like nothing mattered. But it did, because before the fortune cookies or the art critic, Patrick wasn't even trying. He was just existing. After them, he was doing something. He wasn't thinking deeply or changing who he was, but he wasn't stuck. For a moment, he thought there might be something more, and that's what makes these episodes important. They don't show Patrick becoming someone new. They show him almost becoming someone new. They show what it takes to break through his stillness. Outside validation, belief handed to him from someone else. That's the only thing strong enough to get him moving. And that's why it's so fragile. If Patrick doesn't understand why he's doing something, or if the system around him breaks, he collapses with it. He borrows meaning from others, but he doesn't know how to create it for himself. Even if those moments don't last, they leave a mark. Once you've felt like you're part of something, even something fake, it's hard to go back to feeling invisible. Even Patrick, with his short memory and soft brain, might remember the feeling of being chosen, being followed. And maybe, deep down, he'll want to feel it again, because it felt like something made sense. Just for a second. That's the kind of moment that doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to land hard enough to be remembered, even by a starfish. Patrick moves when others give him meaning, but the moment he's asked to hold that meaning on his own, he shuts down and slips back into the safety of not trying. But before I tell you about that, make sure to subscribe. Patrick doesn't always know when he's being invited into something bigger. He doesn't process change like other people. Sometimes something exciting happens, something that could actually move his life forward, but instead of grabbing it, he backs off. Not with fear exactly, more like confusion, or comfort, or just not knowing what to do with it. In I'm With Stupid, Patrick gets a letter. His parents are coming for Starfish Day, and he's panicking. They already think he's dumb, and he dreads the baby talk and condescending pats on the head. He can't stand it, but he can't face it either. SpongeBob offers to help by pretending to be even dumber than Patrick. It's a sweet, logical plan. Make Patrick look smart by comparison. Patrick agrees instantly, but deep down, there's something he doesn't want to admit. If this works, his parents might start expecting more from him. They might see him as someone who can change, someone who can grow, and that's terrifying. Because for Patrick, life as the family disappointment is safe, predictable, too simple to have to reach for anything more. But the plan works too well. His fake parents start praising him. They're amazed at how he keeps SpongeBob in check. They think he's bright, capable, even responsible. And Patrick gets hooked over the thrill of feeling smarter than SpongeBob, of having power over someone else. It's a feeling he's never had before. When SpongeBob tries to break character and remind Patrick it's all pretend, Patrick won't hear it. He's not interested in stopping. It's easier to keep SpongeBob down than face what it would really mean to stand up for himself. Because that would mean admitting he wants to be better. Admitting he could be better. And that's the part Patrick can't do. He'd rather stay stuck in a lie than risk failing at something true. SpongeBob finally snaps and crashes through the wall, done with the whole act. And Patrick is left alone with strangers who turn out not to be his real parents at all. The lie collapses around him, and he's forced to face the truth. In the end, his real parents show up. They love him just as he is, pants and all. They don't expect him to be a genius. They don't want him to be someone else. And Patrick is relieved. He gets the acceptance he wanted without having to change a thing. The universe gives him a pass, and he doesn't have to grow. But even in that relief, Patrick can't quite escape the truth. Sooner or later, he'll still have to face problems that can't be solved by someone else playing dumb. Now contrast that with Big Pink Loser. This is the closest Patrick has ever gotten to becoming something more. He is given the chance, handed it literally. The episode starts with SpongeBob winning an award for Employee of the Month. Again, Patrick has never won anything. He's never tried to. But suddenly, he wants to. He wants what SpongeBob has, without knowing what it costs. So SpongeBob offers to help. He gives Patrick a uniform, teaches him how to take orders, how to clean tables, how to be consistent. It's the first time anyone has tried to guide Patrick towards actual responsibility. And for a few seconds, it almost works. But the moment Patrick has to think, he breaks. He can't remember things. He can't follow instructions. His mind gets overwhelmed. He gets overwhelmed. So, what does he do? He copies SpongeBob completely. Voice, mannerisms, SquarePants, everything. Because Patrick doesn't know how to improve as himself. The only version of success he understands is mimicry. If SpongeBob wins awards, then maybe if Patrick becomes SpongeBob, he'll win too. And it works, briefly. Customers cheer. Mr. Krabs approves. Patrick gets attention, but it's not really his. It's borrowed. And deep down, he knows it. The real Patrick is still afraid. Afraid that if he does things his way, he'll fail. So he erases himself and hopes no one notices. But SpongeBob does. Eventually, SpongeBob gets frustrated because Patrick won't be Patrick. And when Patrick realizes that, even after copying perfectly, he still doesn't win the award, he gives up. He throws his uniform away because the version of success being asked of him feels impossible. Because he knows he'll never be like SpongeBob. So he returns to the rock, to his nothing. Because if he stays small, he never has to watch himself fail. That's the pattern. When Patrick is handed something real, a skill, a chance, a purpose, he hesitates. If it involves being seen, being judged, or being different, he slips away. He disappears into jokes, noise, or silence. Anything but pressure. People think Patrick is lazy, but really, he's fragile. Deep down, he knows he doesn't know how to carry things. So instead of risking that, he just stays still. Even when the world calls him out. Even when someone says try. He doesn't say no, he just looks away. That's a choice. And it's one he keeps making. Every time he refuses, he inches closer to the moment when refusing won't be an option anymore. When the world won't wait for him to be ready. And maybe, just maybe, he'll have to decide who Patrick really is. Without the whistle and without the SquarePants. Patrick rejects change because no one ever showed him how to carry it, which is exactly where SpongeBob steps in. Patrick doesn't usually ask for help. He doesn't seek advice. Doesn't chase role models. He lives under a rock and mostly likes it that way. But when something new drags him out of that comfort, something strange, exciting, or just different, there's usually one person standing right next to him, ready to push him forward. SpongeBob. SpongeBob isn't a perfect mentor. He's overly optimistic, too fast, too eager, but he believes in Patrick. Because SpongeBob sees potential in everyone, even when no one else does. And that includes Patrick, especially when Patrick has no idea what he's doing. In Big Baby Patrick, Patrick wants to hold on to his childhood. His parents are throwing out his old toys. To stop them, he becomes a baby again. Not just in behavior. He puts on a diaper, sucks on a pacifier, crawls across the floor. What starts as an act becomes real. Everyone plays along. No one challenges him. Except SpongeBob. SpongeBob just wants to go jellyfishing. He walks into Patrick's house like it's any other day, until Bunny Star tells him that Patrick's busy being a baby today. SpongeBob pauses. He could leave. Instead, he offers to help. He volunteers to babysit. At first it's a joke, but when Patrick spits food at him, throws tantrums, and demands constant attention, SpongeBob doesn't quit. He tries harder. He takes Patrick to Goofy Goobers. Babies aren't allowed ice cream. SpongeBob's plan is simple. Let Patrick want something he can't have, and maybe he'll grow out of the act on his own. It backfires. Patrick eats SpongeBob's sundae, gets him kicked out, and then throws a tantrum until he gets a second sundae. But then SpongeBob turns into a baby too, emotionally, literally. He joins Patrick, cries, babbles, flails. He becomes what Patrick is, because trying to be the adult didn't work. That's not mentorship in the traditional sense, but it's something deeper. SpongeBob is showing up for Patrick even when it makes him worse. He's not trying to control him anymore. He's trying to be near him, close enough that maybe, eventually, Patrick will come back. And that's what happens. Patrick sees what SpongeBob becomes, the absurdity of it, the collapse. And while he doesn't say a word about it, you can feel it change. Sometimes the lesson is about realizing who you've dragged down with you and deciding not to keep going. Then, in Patrick's Smartpants, Patrick shows up with his jellyfishing net, and SpongeBob and Patrick go jellyfishing as usual. They're laughing, playing, and chasing jellyfish through jellyfish fields. Everything feels familiar and fun, but then Patrick gets too caught up in the excitement. He runs straight off a cliff. He falls headfirst into the ocean below and lands on a strange, brain-shaped coral. SpongeBob rushes down to help. In a panic, he finds Patrick's body, and without thinking, he grabs the closest thing that looks like a head, the brain coral, and sticks it back onto Patrick's body. It works. Patrick wakes up, but something's different. His voice changes. His posture shifts. He starts using big words. He's calm, polite, almost robotic. He's smart now. Not just smart, brilliant. And that's the turning point. In a single moment, Patrick goes from bumbling and carefree to articulate and precise. At first, SpongeBob's excited. His best friend is talking about books, using long words, and acting like a philosopher. Patrick starts saying things like, "My mind is abuzz with thoughts," and "I find your conversation stimulating." He joins Squidward's book club. He impresses Sandy with scientific insight. But something's different too. He's not playing games anymore, not laughing, not jellyfishing. He doesn't even want to go to Goofy Goobers. He tells SpongeBob that their friendship no longer stimulates his intellect. In other words, SpongeBob's too simple, too childish. SpongeBob is heartbroken. He tries to hide it at first, smiling through the pain, but you can see it in his eyes. He's confused, rejected. He's still standing beside Patrick, but it's like his best friend isn't there anymore. Meanwhile, Patrick seems successful. He fits in with smart people. He discusses art with Squidward and logic with Sandy. But despite all the praise, there's a distance in his eyes. The connection is missing. He speaks well, but he's not feeling much. He's not laughing. He's not happy. The smarts made him impressive, but also alone. Later, SpongeBob finds Patrick sitting by himself, and SpongeBob shows him a scrapbook full of memories. Pictures of jellyfishing, jokes, laughter, the old Patrick, the fun, silly moments they shared. He just offers a quiet reminder of who they used to be, and still could be. Patrick looks at the photos, then at SpongeBob, and something inside him softens. He realizes that all the intelligence in the world means nothing if it cuts you off from the people who care about you, the ones who saw your worth before you could pronounce it, the ones who didn't need you to be perfect, just present. So he asks SpongeBob for help. They return to Jellyfish Field. Patrick jumps off the cliff again, intentionally this time, to knock the brain coral off and reattach his original head. It works. He's back. The old Patrick returns. Silly, goofy, happy. And SpongeBob is too. Then, into Save a Squirrel, Sandy's going camping. She says SpongeBob and Patrick aren't invited, but they ignore her and sneak into the van. They get kicked out halfway there, left in the middle of nowhere. At first, it's chaos. Patrick eats all their rations instantly. SpongeBob tries to build a fire and fails. They fight. They panic. Everything breaks. But SpongeBob doesn't give up. He pulls out a stick, tries to spear dinner, fails again. But he keeps moving, keeps trying. Patrick does what Patrick always does. Nothing. He floats, watches, makes jokes, until SpongeBob starts to break down. That's when Patrick says something rare. "Maybe I should try." It's awkward. Too late. And it goes nowhere. But the fact that Patrick offers to try, that he says those words at all, is a shift. They stumble into a cave. A strange old man tells them there's no escape, that they'll never make it out. And again, Patrick leans on SpongeBob. But SpongeBob's tired, cold, and hungry. And then paranoia sets in. They turn on each other, think the other is going to eat them. It's absurd, but it's also honest. When survival kicks in, trust gets shaky. In the end, it was all a test. The old man was Sandy in disguise. She wanted to see if they could handle the pressure, and somehow, they did, because SpongeBob refused to give up. And Patrick saw that. He didn't take over, he didn't save the day, but he followed. And for once, he saw someone model what effort actually looks like. SpongeBob didn't tell him to be better. He just showed him what better might look like. None of these moments are clean. Patrick doesn't walk away wiser. SpongeBob doesn't always get it right. But underneath the chaos is something steady. Presence. SpongeBob never walks out on Patrick. Not when he's wearing a diaper. Not when he's too smart to care. Not when he's stealing food in the wilderness. And that's what a guide looks like when you don't even know you're learning. Someone who doesn't teach you how to climb, but who sits at the bottom of the mountain with you until you decide to start. Patrick grows because SpongeBob refuses to leave, and that stubborn presence is what finally pushes Patrick to step out and try on his own. Patrick never needed much. He didn't chase dreams, he didn't plan his days, didn't care what people thought. Life to him was a loop. Eat, sleep, float, repeat. Even his mistakes circled back into comfort. This was his world. Predictable, harmless, closed off. But even the most sealed off people have moments where something breaks through. And for Patrick, those moments usually start by accident. Patrick never needed much. He didn't chase dreams, didn't plan his days, didn't care what people thought. Life to him was a loop. Eat, sleep, float, repeat. Even his mistakes circled back into comfort. That was his world. Predictable, harmless, closed off. But even the most sealed off people have moments where something breaks through. And for Patrick, these moments usually start by accident. It begins in New Student Starfish. Patrick shows up at SpongeBob's doors with a jellyfishing net, expecting another empty day. But instead of his usual aimless floating, he gets an invitation. Come to school. He says yes without thinking. The moment he walks into that classroom, there are expectations. A teacher watching, rules that matter. Patrick doesn't understand any of it, but he's already inside. When Mrs. Puff asks his name, he freezes. The pressure of being seen overwhelms him. So he blurts out 24, random, but somehow everyone laughs, including him. That laugh shows him how good it feels to get a reaction. So he keeps pushing, drawing pictures, passing notes, turning SpongeBob into his partner in crime. But when Mrs. Puff catches them, Patrick gets a warning, but SpongeBob loses a star. His best friend pays the price for Patrick's choices. That's when Patrick learns what consequences actually look like. SpongeBob gets sent to the back of the room, angry. They fight. Patrick dismisses it. Who cares about a stupid star? But SpongeBob does care. And suddenly, Patrick's carelessness isn't just harmless anymore. In detention, when the light bulb burns out and Roger starts dying, Patrick climbs the mountain of light bulbs, actually trying to fix what's broken. He doesn't do it perfectly, but he does it. When it's over, they've saved Roger and earned their stars. Patrick casually mentions he thought this was Spanish class. He's still clueless. Still Patrick. But he's a Patrick who stayed, who tried, who can't go back to floating through life like nothing matters. Patrick stumbles into change without meaning to, but things get real when his fun starts to hurt people. Later, Sing a Song of Patrick hits the same chord but louder. Patrick writes a poem. It's confusing, it barely makes sense, but it matters to him. He wants it to be heard, so he takes it to the radio and begs them to turn it into a song. The host laughs in his face, but Patrick pushes anyway. He insists. He fights to have something personal put on display, even knowing it might get torn apart. They air the song. It's bad. Bikini Bottom hates it. Callers insult it. People play it just to laugh at it. But Patrick listens, proudly. He walks through town as it plays, getting mocked by strangers, and he doesn't flinch, because for once, he doesn't back down. He puts something out there and he's standing by it. This isn't Patrick the sidekick. It's Patrick the participant. He's not echoing SpongeBob or hiding behind his rock. He's choosing to be seen, and not in a costume. Not in someone else's story, but as himself. It doesn't end with victory. The town crashes from laughing too hard. Patrick's song becomes a joke, but he doesn't crumble. He doesn't retreat. He just watches the mess and shrugs. That's what crossing over looks like for him. Not triumph, but standing still while the world reacts. In Firehouse Bob, the shift goes further. Patrick is taking on responsibility. He and SpongeBob become volunteer firefighters. Not because they're heroes, but because someone else didn't want to do it. It's chaotic from the start. Patrick wears the wrong uniform, slides down the wrong pole, fails every drill, but he tries. He shouts orders, holds hoses, volunteers for ladder duty, and even when he vomits on himself or knocks over equipment, he shows up for the next task. He doesn't joke his way out. He doesn't hide behind SpongeBob. He participates. There's a scene where a fire breaks out in the station itself. Larry, their trainer, gets trapped. And it's Patrick, useless, clumsy Patrick, who climbs back in, gets soaked by the hose, and helps anyway. He doesn't save the day. The fire comes back, but that's not the point. The point is that he didn't run. He could have stayed home, eaten ice cream, waited for things to pass, but he chose chaos, noise, pressure. That's not who he was. He's not fully changed. He's still Patrick, but he stepped into a role that expected something from him and didn't immediately collapse when he couldn't deliver. Each of these moments, whether it's the card, the song, or the fire hose, pushes Patrick a little further away from his old world. Not with force, with friction, with enough weight that he can't just float anymore. He learns what it's like to care, to fail publicly, to get laughed at and stay standing. He doesn't get a reward, but he keeps going anyway. That's where the real change starts. Patrick grows by stumbling into moments that bruise his ego just enough to make him stay awake. And that slow discomfort sets the stage for the real tests, where play turns into pressure and friendship stops being easy. Quick reminder, if you're enjoying the video so far, then don't forget to subscribe. Really helps out a lot. Patrick doesn't understand that he's being tested. He doesn't realize that the people around him are slowly expecting more. More thought, more effort, more awareness. But once he starts stepping into that unfamiliar space, every interaction becomes heavier. Play turns into conflict, friendship becomes complicated, and the safety he used to feel just being himself begins to slip. In Sandcastles in the Sand, it all starts with a beach trip. Patrick and SpongeBob build sandcastles beside each other, enjoying the sun, the quiet, and the rhythm of play. But things shift fast. One sandcastle bumps into the other, then a wall goes up, then another. Patrick builds higher. SpongeBob retaliates. Before long, the castles turn into bunkers, then weapons. They're not friends building side by side anymore. They're enemies in a full-blown war. Patrick throws everything he has into defending his space, not just because he wants to win, but because he suddenly feels like losing means being less. When SpongeBob offers peace, Patrick rejects it, not with cruelty, but with pride. He doesn't want the fun back. He wants to win. That's what makes the ending land harder. Both castles fall. Everything is wrecked. No one wins. They're left standing in a pile of broken sand, too tired to keep going. But that collapse isn't empty. Patrick's never cared about something enough to defend it, even if it meant hurting someone else. And now he's tasted what that feels like. How good it is at first, and then how lonely it becomes. That's a lesson he doesn't talk about, but you can feel it hanging in the quiet when the dust settles. The Battle of Bikini Bottom begins with a simple disagreement. Patrick doesn't like soap. SpongeBob does. At first, it's a gross-out joke. Patrick eats out of trash bins, wipes his feet on the table, and smears gunk wherever he goes. But he's not just being dirty. He's proud of it. He treats filth like a badge of honor. And SpongeBob, trying to help, responds with cleaning supplies and rules. Patrick fights back harder. Soon, it's another full-blown battle. One side coated in slime, and the other drowning in disinfectant. And Patrick refuses to admit he's wrong. He doesn't want to be clean. He wants to be himself, even if that version of himself grosses everyone out. By the time the episode ends, there's no apology, no truce, just two friends, exhausted, covered in the wreckage of a moral fight neither of them really won. But Patrick learned something. Not everyone will accept you for who you are if who you are is hard to be around. And sometimes, defending your habits means losing something else. Trust, closeness, and peace. He doesn't change, but he walks away knowing that being himself can have consequences. That idea doesn't go away. In Yours, Mine, and Mine, Patrick and SpongeBob split the cost of a crusty kid's meal that comes with a toy. SpongeBob expects to share it. Patrick assumes it's his. The entire episode becomes a quiet power struggle over something tiny but symbolic. Patrick licks the toy to mark his territory. He hides it when SpongeBob reaches for it. And even when SpongeBob calmly asks for a turn, Patrick ignores him. He's not joking. He's not playing dumb. He knows what he's doing. He just doesn't care. Until the very end, when he swallows the toy whole, right in front of SpongeBob. For the first time, Patrick makes a conscious decision that hurts someone, and he does it anyway. SpongeBob leaves. Patrick is left alone at the table. Toy gone, friendship cracked. There's no laughter, no excuse, just silence. That moment says everything. Patrick didn't steal the toy because he needed it. He stole it because he didn't know how to give it up. And the weight of that choice, the stillness of being right and alone, stays with him. There's no fix, just a line that got crossed. And Patrick knows it. In Dumped, Patrick gets something he's never had before. Someone choosing him over SpongeBob. When Gary suddenly starts following Patrick around instead, Patrick doesn't question why. He just enjoys it. For once, he's the favorite. Patrick walks around with Gary like he's won the lottery. He's completely oblivious to how much this is destroying SpongeBob. When SpongeBob breaks down and begs Gary to come home, offering unlimited freedom, trashing his own furniture, carving up his prized Squidward sculpture, Patrick just watches with smug satisfaction. "How pathetic," he says, like he's above all that desperate emotion. But Gary doesn't actually care about Patrick. He just wants the cookie in Patrick's pocket. When that cookie disappears into Gary's mouth, so does all of Gary's interest. The snail immediately crawls back to SpongeBob, leaving Patrick standing there like an idiot. "I thought what we had was special," Patrick says to nobody, his voice small and broken. It's the first time Patrick has ever been on the receiving end of rejection. The first time he's realized that someone was only using him. The hurt in his voice is raw and real. He genuinely believed Gary liked him. Now he knows how it feels when someone you care about just leaves. It's a crash course in heartbreak for someone who's never had his heart in anything before. Rule of Dumb gives Patrick everything. Power, status, attention. He becomes king of Bikini Bottom and turns it into a personal playground. At first, it's fun. He orders room service, makes SpongeBob carry him on a throne, and declares his wishes as law. But the power changes him. He stops listening, takes people's homes, starts stealing food from strangers. The town turns on him. SpongeBob tries to reason with him, but Patrick's drunk on control. He believes he deserves it. Eventually, it catches up to him. The cheers turn into silence. Friends leave. The crown feels heavier. Patrick looks around and sees what he's done in a long pause, and he gives it up willingly because he sees what he became and doesn't want to be that person anymore. That's a first for Patrick. Recognizing that something he thought would make him feel bigger only made him feel empty. In that sinking feeling, Patrick and SpongeBob can't stand being apart. Squidward forces them to stay on their own property, so they start digging tunnels to see each other. At first, it's innocent, then obsessive. Patrick keeps digging. The tunnels get deeper, wider, riskier. Soon, the whole neighborhood starts to shake. Walls collapse, floors break open. Squidward's house is destroyed, and Patrick doesn't stop until it's too late. What makes this moment different is what happens afterward. Patrick doesn't laugh. He doesn't point fingers. He looks at the damage and agrees when SpongeBob says they should stop. It's the first time Patrick reaches a limit, because he understands that his want, his need for constant closeness, caused harm. And for someone who usually lives in a world of impulses, that pause is huge. Rise and Shine shows none of that chaos. Just Patrick, alone in his home, going through a day without anyone watching. He wakes up, brushes his eyes, toasts his shoes, tries to eat a bar of soap. He talks to inanimate objects like they're old friends. There's no plot, no conflict. Just a slow, quiet unraveling of a life built entirely around simplicity and confusion. And it's more revealing than anything else. Because without SpongeBob, without the town, without expectations, Patrick is still lost, still reaching for something to hold. The sock puppet, the faucet, the soap, they're not jokes. They're signs of someone who never quite figured out what it means to be known. And after all the battles, toys, songs, and thrones, that moment, brushing his teeth with butter, shows what's really been missing the whole time: understanding. These are the moments that stretch Patrick. He doesn't always get it right, but he shows up. He hurts people. He tries to fix it. He pulls away, then moves back in closer. And through it all, the space around him shifts. From a harmless rock to a complicated world full of people who expect more than just jokes. And whether he realizes it or not, he's starting to expect more from himself too. Patrick learns how much damage he can cause just by being himself, but it's not until the damage hits the person he loves most that his need to be seen finally explodes into something raw, selfish, and real. Patrick doesn't plan to become part of something bigger than himself. He doesn't prepare for it. He just stumbles into it, like he always does. Head first, heart half open, and brain mostly off. But in the Fry Cook games, it's different. He doesn't just trip into someone else's story. He steps into one of his own. And for once, it's not silly, it's not fun, it's personal. It starts loud. The crowd roars, flags wave, the stadium is full. Bikini Bottom's biggest fast food event, the Fry Cook Games, has begun. It's part Olympics, part commercial, all chaos. SpongeBob enters proudly, representing the Krusty Krab, but then a twist hits. Patrick shows up too, wearing a chum bucket uniform. His arrival shocking, dramatic, emotional. SpongeBob is stunned. He sees it as a betrayal, but Patrick isn't joking. He stands proud, flexing, glaring. He declares his loyalty to Plankton, then slaps SpongeBob with a tray and says he wants to beat him. There's no smile on his face, no confusion in his voice, This is war. It doesn't matter that Patrick has never cooked. It doesn't matter that he doesn't even understand the games. What matters is that, for the first time, he's willing to stand on his own, even if it means standing against the only person who ever stood by him. That's what makes it sting. As the games begin, Patrick throws himself into every challenge with wild, raw energy. He doesn't think, he reacts. He lifts weights made of patties, he hurdles ketchup bottles, he jumps through fiery hoops, and with every round, the rivalry gets hotter. SpongeBob matches him step for step, not because he wants to hurt him, but because now it's personal. This is about friendship, about loyalty, about feeling abandoned. Patrick doesn't blink. He calls SpongeBob a yellow traitor. He shouts about how he's tired of always being in someone else's shadow. He wants to be taken seriously, to matter. And the only way he knows how to do that is to fight for it. This isn't the goofy sidekick anymore. The stadium screams. The tension is thick. SpongeBob doesn't understand what changed. And honestly, neither does Patrick. He doesn't have words for it. He just knows something inside him wants to be seen. And for once, being funny isn't enough. As the final challenge begins, the tension explodes. They're both pushed to the edge. They start wrestling, flinging condiments, throwing fists. It stops being about food. Now it's a brawl. Public, messy, and emotional. They're not competing. They're collapsing. And then comes the moment. Mid-fight, their shorts get ripped off. Everyone gasps. There, on Patrick's underwear, SpongeBob's face. On SpongeBob's, Patrick's. Suddenly, the absurdity lands. It hits them both. They remember. All this time, all this pain, all this screaming, they're still each other's best friends. The crowd disappears. The anger drops. They cry. They hug. They whisper, "Let's never fight again," and mean it. That's what makes this moment so raw. It was about needing space and not knowing how to ask for it. About needing recognition and not knowing how to earn it. About finally stepping out on your own and realizing you didn't want to be alone. This is where the real break happens for Patrick. He didn't just face SpongeBob. He faced the fear that maybe he didn't matter without him, that he was only ever the sidekick, the joke, the punchline. And even though the fight got ugly, even though it hurt, he stood up for himself. And then, more importantly, he stepped back down, out of love. That's a hard thing to do. To want space but not sever ties. To want change but not destruction. Patrick learns all of that here. Not in a classroom, not with a speech, but in the dirt. Surrounded by cheering strangers, looking into the eyes of the only person who's ever really seen him. And he didn't run. He showed up. And in his own weird, ridiculous way, he was brave. Patrick finally stands up for himself in the loudest way possible. But it's in the quiet, messy aftermath that he starts learning how to actually take care of something other than his own pride. Sometimes the biggest reward is something you realize about who you are and how your actions shape the people around you. For Patrick, that realization comes slowly, through failure. Through doing the wrong thing so many times that, for once, he notices the silence afterward. He notices what's missing. In Pets That Are Pat, that silence is the loudest thing he hears. It begins with SpongeBob excitedly preparing to leave for his grandma's birthday party. The only problem? He needs someone to take care of Gary. After Squidward shuts the door in his face, SpongeBob turns to Patrick. Patrick agrees without hesitation. He's happy to help. He's confident, proud, and entirely unqualified. SpongeBob hands him a care schedule, which Patrick holds upside down, nods at, and immediately throws away. From that moment, it's all downhill. Patrick eats Gary's food, floods the house, and even tries to give Gary a flamethrower bath. SpongeBob keeps calling to check in. Patrick keeps saying everything is fine. And in his own mind, it is. He's not ignoring the chaos. He just doesn't see it. That's what makes it hit harder. Patrick genuinely wants to do a good job. He just doesn't know what that actually means. When the house finally floods and SpongeBob returns in a panic, the moment shifts. He rushes upstairs expecting to find Gary harmed, and instead finds Gary calmly reading a book to Patrick. The scene is still ridiculous. Patrick still thinks the book is called Meow, 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 but he's just sitting, listening. It's not a fix, but it's honest, and that's new. The takeaway isn't that Patrick becomes a responsible adult overnight. It's that for once, he stays in the discomfort. He doesn't explain it away. He doesn't run. He just sits in the mess, quietly listening to the very creature he nearly destroyed. That moment stays with him. And later, in Sanctuary, we see a version of Patrick that might have remembered. This episode begins when Gary finds a stray snail and brings her home. SpongeBob names her Senor Poopus and builds a safe space for her. It's a sweet setup. But it quickly grows more complicated when Patrick shows up with a cardboard box full of baby snails. He says he found them abandoned. Nobody asked him to help. He just did it. That small detail matters. He steps into it voluntarily. That might seem like nothing, but for Patrick, that shift is huge.
He's not helping because someone trusted him. He's helping because he chose to. It's chaotic. Of course it is. He builds an entire sanctuary out of garbage and lets snails crawl all over him. He doesn't know how to organize or clean up or manage, but he keeps showing up. That's what makes this version of him more interesting. He's still making mistakes, feeding them weird food, losing track of some of them, but there's care in it, effort. And when the mother snail eventually comes back to collect her babies, Patrick doesn't cry or throw a tantrum. He watches quietly. He understands. He even smiles. He doesn't need the snails to stay to feel useful. He just needs to know he did something that mattered. And in that moment, he lets go. That's not something he would have done before. Patrick doesn't suddenly figure out everything or become a whole new person. It's not clean like that. It's more like small moments that slip in when he's not looking. Tiny shifts in how he reacts, how he shows up. He's still loud, still confused half the time, still doing things that make no sense. But something's changing, slowly. Not all at once, not in a big way, but enough to notice if you're paying attention. Patrick finally learns to care without being told to, but caring just makes the failure feel heavier. Before we get to that, hit the subscribe button and let's get back to the video. Patrick's version of moving forward looks a lot like stumbling. After everything he's been through, the emotional slip-ups, the quiet realizations, the moments where he's been forced to sit still, he starts to edge back into his usual routine. But the world he's returning to isn't quite the same. And more importantly, he's not the same either. He doesn't know it yet. That's what makes the next part of the journey hard. He's not trying to become better. He's just trying to get back to normal. But normal isn't what it used to be. In the executive treatment, it starts small. Patrick walks into the Krusty Krab just looking for a meal. He sees fish in suits eating something fancy, and when he's told he's not allowed to have it because he's not an exclusive, Patrick wants to be an executive because he wants to feel important. So he grabs a tie and glasses, walks back in, and tries to fake his way through the system. That one decision kicks off a surreal spiral. Suddenly, Patrick is dragged into a corporate building with real business people who think he's one of them. He's terrified, but he keeps quiet, because if he admits he doesn't belong there, he could be arrested for espionage. So instead, he fakes it. He bluffs. He keeps smiling. He goes to meetings. He takes on tasks. And for a while, it actually works. Nobody sees through him, but that comes at a cost. Underneath all the suits and boardrooms, Patrick is panicking. He doesn't know what he's doing, and he's trapped by the role he's created. Every minute he stays silent, the lie gets deeper. And it's not funny, it's claustrophobic. And the second he's finally caught, he tells them the truth and they throw him in jail. It sounds like a punchline, but there's something real under it. Because Patrick didn't end up here by chasing power. He ended up here by trying to feel like he mattered. The tie, the glasses, the act, they were all attempts to earn something that wasn't meant for him. And in the end, when SpongeBob visits him in jail and reminds him that he is technically an executive, because he runs the laundry room on Thursdays, it flips everything. Patrick realizes that identity isn't something you force. It's something that shows up in the small stuff. The boring stuff. The stuff you forget to brag about. And then, in the donut of shame, that pressure comes back. But this time in a much smaller way. Patrick wakes up after SpongeBob's tea party and finds his friend passed out, holding a donut. Patrick takes it just because it's there, and it looks good. He even sets it on fine china because a donut this nice deserves to be served on fine china. But the second he's about to eat it, he remembers SpongeBob saying how special this donut was. How it could really make a guy happy. After everything Patrick's been through, after learning how much his choices affect others, his conscience kicks in at exactly the wrong moment. The angel and devil donuts appear on his shoulders, and for once, Patrick actually listens to the angel. He spits the donut out. "It's SpongeBob's!" he cries. But then comes the real test. SpongeBob calls. He's coming over with a videotape of the party. Patrick panics, but because he's about to get caught, he runs around his house trying to hide the evidence. Under a rug, but SpongeBob might step on it. In the toaster, but SpongeBob might want toast. In the toilet, but SpongeBob might need to use it. He even tries climbing into an imaginary attic, twice, failing both times. When SpongeBob finally arrives, Patrick can't handle it. He breaks down crying before SpongeBob even asks. "I took it, SpongeBob! I took your donut! I'm sorry!" He's sitting with the weight of disappointing someone who matters to him, and he confesses before he has to. The guilt is eating him alive. And then, the twist. It was his donut all along. A birthday gift. SpongeBob had been trying to make him happy. The donut is stale and gross by the end. Patrick still offers to share it, but it makes SpongeBob sick. It's awkward, imperfect. But that's the point. Growth isn't one straight climb. It's jagged. It repeats itself. And Patrick is learning that sometimes caring about your friends means you torture yourself over nothing. But you do it anyway. because the alternative is worse. The hardest part is living with the fear that you might hurt someone you love, even when they're trying to be kind to you. Patrick learns how much damage a small mistake can do, but the real test comes when the people he loves become the ones causing it. There's always that one moment near the end, when everything that's been building finally hits, with a choice. Patrick's been stumbling towards this without even knowing it. He's made mistakes, hurt people, tried to help in ways that didn't help, but now things come full circle. He gets one last chance to show if anything actually stuck. It starts with big sister Sam. One day, Patrick's long-lost sister shows up. Her name's Sam. She's huge, emotional. She screams, she cries, she hugs too hard. Patrick's thrilled. He brings her home like it's the best surprise ever. SpongeBob tries to be polite. Squidward just wants to survive. At first, it's fine. But then Sam starts causing real problems. She smashes Squidward's house. She wrecks things without meaning to. Gets mad at SpongeBob just for looking confused. She's not trying to be cruel. She just doesn't have a pause button. And Patrick, he defends her over and over. Says things like, that's just how Sam is. And like that makes it okay. But after a while, it stops being funny. SpongeBob backs off. Squidward's out of patience, and Patrick starts to see the cracks. He's stuck between two sides, someone he loves from the past and the people who stood by him every day since. He keeps smiling, but it's different now, like he knows this is twisting but doesn't know how to stop it. And then, without drama, something changes. Patrick just stops protecting her from the truth. That's all. He lets the silence break, and in that tiny, quiet moment, you can feel it. He knows love isn't just saying yes no matter what. Sometimes it's knowing when to step back. Then there's Patrick Man. Patrick decides he's going to be a superhero. He makes a costume, invents a name, and runs around town trying to stop crimes that aren't happening. It's silly at first. He blocks traffic, gets in people's way. SpongeBob plays along, kind of. It's harmless, but Patrick takes it too far. He starts seeing danger everywhere. He tackles random citizens, shouts orders, tries to save people who didn't ask for it. And when SpongeBob tries to talk to him, Patrick doesn't hear it. He's locked in. He thinks he's finally important, that helping people means being in control. Then he goes too far. He causes an accident. Someone gets hurt. And just like that, everything stops. The people he wanted to protect are upset and disappointed. That hits him harder than any punch ever could. He looks around and sees it's just a mess. So, quietly, Patrick takes off the costume. He just knows he was trying to be something big, but the moment he let go of that, he became something better. These aren't hero moments in the usual sense. Patrick doesn't defeat a villain. He doesn't save the town, but he does something harder. He steps back. He admits, without saying it, that maybe being good isn't about being loud. Maybe it's about knowing when to stop. That's the turning point. Because finally, he listens with his choices. And once you see that shift, you can't unsee it. He's still Patrick, still weird, still kind of a mess, but now he pauses. And that pause, that's everything. Patrick learns that real strength is knowing when to stop. And yet, the hardest battle comes when he tries to return just as himself. Coming back is sometimes just about showing up again, without the act, and without needing anyone's approval. Patrick doesn't return stronger or smarter. He doesn't return to cheers. He just comes back as himself, and somehow that's harder than anything he did before. In That's No Lady, it all starts with panic. Patrick overhears a stranger say something that sounds threatening, that he has to leave town. Patrick doesn't ask questions. He just runs. He assumes the worst. That's what Patrick does when fear takes over. He disappears. And when he comes back, he's not Patrick anymore. He's Patricia, a green bikini, a blonde wig, a forced smile. He reinvents himself completely, hoping that if he looks different, maybe the world will treat him differently too. And it does. Suddenly, people are kind. Mr. Krabs flirts with him. Squidward competes for his attention. No one recognizes him. And Patrick, to his own surprise, likes how that feels. But being someone else takes work. He softens his voice, changes how he moves, tries to be polite, gentle, and helpful. For a while, it seems like it's working. He has a job. People praise him. It looks like a fresh start, but the cracks show fast. The compliments don't feel real. The smiles feel heavy. The act wears him down. And Patrick, who never cared what anyone thought, suddenly can't stop performing for them. He keeps going, giggling, nodding, faking it, but inside, he's slipping. There's no one to talk to. No room to just be. It's like watching yourself from the outside and realizing you're not in control anymore. Eventually, it builds to a moment. Patrick walks into the Krusty Krab, ready to confess. He starts to take off the disguise, but then he sees the stranger who started it all, the one who chased him out of town. And just like that, the fear comes back. That pauses everything. Change doesn't happen in one clean breath. And Patrick, who looked ready to be honest, suddenly isn't. He hides again, because that old fear still has a grip. And then something different happens. SpongeBob, who's been quietly watching the whole thing unfold, steps in. He tells the stranger, "If you want Patrick, you'll have to go through me." It's a small act, but it lands with a punch. Because this time, Patrick doesn't respond with a joke or a meltdown. He doesn't say anything at all. He just watches. He hears it. And when the stranger suddenly explains he wasn't chasing Patrick at all, just trying to sell a vacation package, something clicks. Patrick laughs. Not a big, silly laugh, just something soft. The fear was never real, but the way it shaped him, that was. He takes off the wig, the bikini. He stands there, naked, awkward, and honest. The whole story is about pressure. The kind of pressure that convinces you that who you are isn't good enough. And maybe if you become someone nicer, quieter, easier to understand, people would finally accept you. Patrick never said those things out loud. He didn't need to. He lived it. But now, he walks out the door with SpongeBob as just two friends, side by side again. The conversation isn't deep, but he came back with just himself. And that's the thing he'd been running from the whole time. The town didn't change. People still laughed at him. Squidward rolled his eyes. Mr. Krabs fired him. But Patrick didn't fold this time. He let the moment pass, let the weirdness stay, and stepped back into his old life. And that's what returning looks like when you've actually been somewhere. He's still Patrick, still weird, still loud when he shouldn't be. But now, he doesn't need to become someone else just to be accepted. He can stand in his own skin, even if it's pink, awkward, and confusing. Some characters come back with trophies. Some come back with peace. Patrick comes back barefoot, broke, and completely himself. And it's enough. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you in the next video.